Welcome back to CVIX and CIT's Central Virginia Venture Connect. I'm here today with Stephanie Agee, Vice President of International Trade for the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. Thanks for joining us today, Stephanie.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Justin. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so today and with this video, what we're really trying to do is help the viewer understand what exactly the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, of which I'll now describe or define it as a VEDP, what exactly it does and what it can offer for businesses seeking to take their sales overseas. So perhaps maybe it's a good place to start, Stephanie, if you can just help paint the landscape here and share with us exactly, generally speaking, what is the impact of international trade on the Virginia economy?
Absolutely. Well, it's a great question. It's a great place to start because I think most citizens, most businesses even wouldn't understand. They wouldn't have reason to understand the wide and varied impact of international trade on Virginia. So a few different ways to look at this. First of all, it's good to know exports support more than 257,000 jobs in Virginia. So that's a lot of workers here in the Commonwealth who are relying on exports and the success of Virginia products and services around the world in order to maintain their jobs. Another really important thing for us to know at VEDP, and one of the great reasons why we do this work, is that Virginia businesses that export contribute a significant amount to our total tax revenue, as much as $2 billion annually, in fact. In terms of what we actually export, because that's often a question people want to know is, how much of this are we talking about? So Virginia exports on average about $36 to $37 billion in goods and services each year. About half of that is services and the other half is products. Products like agricultural goods, coal, manufactured products, equipment, machinery, auto parts, a huge range of things that we sell from here, but it is about half services and about half products.
What services are you seeing generally?
Yeah, so that's another big range. Cybersecurity is something that Virginia has really created a great niche in, especially in Northern Virginia and in the Hampton Roads region. But really, there are companies in that space really in all corners of the Commonwealth. But that's one niche area. Software, really advanced software that goes into a lot of different sectors. Are a lot of the services that we see leaving from here.
Cool. So with that said, how exactly does VEDP help international trade in Virginia?
Right. So, we have a range of programs and services that are designed to help companies at virtually any stage in the export process, in their export world, whether they are just getting started or whether they've been working on it and doing exports for a long time. Our programs and services are designed to help them at just about any stage. And in a year, we work with about 360 companies. We talk to more companies than that, but about 360 actually engage in one of our programs or services. And then what we end up doing, and one of the ways we measure ourselves is how many international sales do those companies make using our services? And in a year, at least last year, $670 million in international sales were attributed by the companies we work with to having utilized one of our programs or resources.
Sounds like a good deal. If I were a startup or a business looking to export my product or the services that my business offers, what factors should I be considering when evaluating whether or not to pursue an export strategy?
Yeah, it's such an important question to ask, because while we're here to help companies and support their international business, we really want to make sure that they are asking questions of themselves as a company, really evaluating, am I prepared to do this? Not just diving in, because we would absolutely not recommend just diving in. You can make a lot of costly mistakes and get yourself in trouble if you haven't really thought through this. So some of the things to think about are, first of all, is your product or service actually sellable in a foreign market? Do you have a value proposition that works, that makes sense for a customer internationally to want to buy your product as opposed to the domestic competition or another international competitor that's already gotten into that market? You have to understand if your product is sellable from a regulatory standpoint. Is there some regulation in the country you're thinking about selling to that would just make your product not qualify? Or is there a modification you could make or would need to make in order to make it qualify for export there? So those are some things. Another really important thing that I think sometimes people just kind of overlook because they don't know how much success they might have internationally is, does my company have the production capacity to fulfill orders from these international customers that I'm about to go after? Do you have space in your line to take on and to fulfill orders that might come in? Another super important thing, especially if you are not if you're in a management position, but maybe not the leadership position in the company, does your leadership buy into going after international business? Is that a strategy that they embrace? Because it does take additional resources, it takes time, and you got to make sure that the very top levels of the company are supportive of putting those resources to use specifically for going after international business.
Okay, so, and I'm assuming that VEDP helps startups answer and maybe even ask these questions for the first time. Is that right?
100%. Yes, we can do that in person, and that's how we normally work. But we have also recently launched an export readiness assessment tool, an online tool that's on our website, and our website is exportvirginia.org. You can go on that website and pull up this assessment. You can take it in about 12 to 15 minutes, depending on how much time you want to spend with it, and answer for yourself and your company some questions that really get at the heart of some of these aspects, these factors I've brought up, and a whole host of others, to sort of say, are we ready? And if we are ready, mostly, where are some weaknesses? What are some areas that we really need to focus on to build up our strength in before we can truly dive into an international business strategy?
Okay, so let's say I'm a startup founder and I take this export readiness assessment and I say, you know what, I really need VEDP in my corner. What comes next?
Right. So the very first way that companies usually engage with us is via one of our international trade managers. So we have 7 trade managers stationed around the state. Each is responsible for covering a specific region. So we make sure that every single territory, every corner of the Commonwealth is covered by our team. So your first step is to connect with that person who covers your region, and they're going to learn more about your company and your objectives. They're going to ask lots of questions. They're going to learn about you, your company, your objectives, your product, your service, and then they're going to start helping you develop and execute your specific strategy for international business. So if you're a startup and you're just getting started with us and you've already sort of seen some international interest, or maybe you even made a few sales internationally already, basically being reactive to people who might have reached out to you and wanted to purchase from you. But you want to go after it and be more proactive in your strategy. So our trade manager will work with you to decide what are the factors that would make an export market a good market for you, for your product, for your service. And then they're going to help do some research. So we're going to get our team of researchers to do research to sort of scan the world and find specific markets that would meet those criteria and would be potential good markets for you to export into. And then once you've kind of narrowed down some countries, after that research comes back and you've worked with your trade manager to look at it and analyze it and say, okay, well, here's a few countries. Let's maybe dive into 2 of these, not to cover the world initially, but let's just pick 1 or 2 markets to focus on first. So then we're going to introduce you and give you the opportunity to talk directly with our in-country consultants, which we have in over 90 countries. You're going to get to talk to them and describe your product and service in your own words, your typical route to market, domestically, what your experience has been so far and how you sell, what kinds of distributors or sales partners tend to work best for you. And then those in-country consultants are going to identify partners or customers that meet those criteria. And then they're actually going to make introductions for you. They're not just going to give you research that then you have to act on. If you want them to take it that next step further, they will call up those contacts and explain you, and make a brief introduction for you. And then as long as those contacts in country are interested in talking, they're going to connect you with them. Wow. And all the while that work is going on in country, your trade manager is going to keep working with you to help you understand all the other aspects of the process of exporting. What is your HS code? Do you need to register your trademark in an international market? What's the landed cost of your product? So that you can help figure out what price you need to charge in another country. Do you need to localize your website, your digital marketing content so that customers in that country can engage with you? And then who can help you even with your shipping options? All of these different types of questions are things that our team can answer for you and help you figure out.
Well, that's amazing. And if I were a founder, I would say, well, what's this going to cost? Because that sounds fantastic. Sign me up.
Right, right. Well, and of course, why it's a very valuable service. And so it would make sense that there would be some money involved. And there is, but actually, as it turns out, most of our services are very low cost, sometimes completely free. And in many cases, utilizing our grant programs, we're actually going to give money to companies to do this work, to go after international sales and to develop their international strategies.
So what does VEDP get out of it?
Well, it goes back to some of these benefits of exporting. I mean, our Virginia's economy gets stronger. The businesses that operate here that export pay higher wages than non-exporters. They tend to be more stable. When companies have diversified revenue streams, so customers domestically as well as in multiple international locations, they're able to manage their revenue streams when economic conditions in one country aren't doing so great and demand maybe has fallen. In some cases, you can regain some of your revenues by focusing on the markets that are doing well. So all of those that's the type of economic resilience and economic strength that we are trying to cultivate, just very specifically via international sales for Virginia companies.
Right. Fantastic. I just switching gears a bit and addressing current affairs of the continuing pandemic of COVID-19, and just wondering, what trends have you seen? What changes have you seen from companies seeking to export during this pandemic?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see. And we early on, March to sort of June 2020. I mean, we weren't exactly sure. Were companies still going to want to be going after international sales? Were they going to put things on pause? And what we found is that they said, no, we need to keep going after international business, and we need your help now more than ever. Because if we can't get on a plane and get ourselves to a country, how are we supposed to engage with potential new customers? How are we supposed to keep maintaining relationships with some of the customers that we've already started selling to if we can't go back and see them and visit them? So the companies we work with, what we were hearing from them is just that they rely on international revenues. They rely on international sales for their bottom line, and they couldn't just sit back. They couldn't just put a pause and stop. So what we were able to do is keep doing a lot of the same work we did, but just pivoting a bit and making it available via virtual option. So just one item, for example, we do trade missions around the world, about 12 to 15 trade missions per year. And with those, typically, the participants travel to market. They travel to the country. It's usually about 8 per trade mission go together, but have their own individual itinerary of meetings in the destination country. So we had a whole itinerary of trade missions set up, a whole agenda of trade missions set up for another year to 18 months when the pandemic hit. And we said, well, these companies still want to access these markets. They still want to meet customers, and they still want to be making sales here. How can we do that when they can't travel? And so we worked with our in-country consultants who help us set up all these meetings for all of our participants. And they said, let's do it. Let's do it virtually. We will make this work. We've all learned about Zoom. We've all learned how well this can work, with staying connected with our teams. Let's do it to stay connected, to keep companies connected to new international sales opportunities. So all the same work still continued with our in-country consultants identifying companies in their territories that matched up with our clients that wanted to do business together. And they set up Zoom meetings. And it wasn't perfect and it wasn't smooth every single time, but it ended up working well. We saw results, and the companies that utilized that service really found results and said, this is great. This is the bridge for us. This is a bridge until we can get back on the road, until we can get back in planes and get over to actually seeing these customers in person.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that another question here is that during this pandemic, we've also noticed certain labor and supply shortages. And for a company that seeks to export, but actually needs to import certain materials for them to create their product to then export, does VEDP also help with import strategies as well, or is there another outlet that you typically collaborate with for those issues?
We actually do, and it just kind of, it all came to a head around around the last year or so. There's been a steady kind of cry for VEDP or someone at the state level to help companies with their imports, to help them with their supply chain strategies. This is all well before supply chain became a regular phrase in headlines every single day. Yeah. There's just been this talk of, look, trade is a two-way game, and VEDP has always helped exporters, but what about importers? Because that is an important driver of our economy as well. It's critical to the Port of Virginia, which is one of our greatest assets in Virginia. About half of their capacity is for imports and half is exports. So what are we doing to help the half that's imports? And all of these companies that rely on imports for inputs and then they add value here in Virginia and employ Virginians to add value to those inputs, and then maybe export them or just sell them domestically, what have you. So there's been a steady cry for us to do some work in this. And then when supply chain disruptions happened in the last year or so, a lot more people heard about it and said, wait, VEDP's got some ideas about how they can help people with imports and how they can help with supply chain strategies. Let's do it. And we were really, really pleased to get good funding from the General Assembly this last year to start up a new program, the Virginia Supply Chain Optimization Program, which we've just kicked off, or just kicking off this month, actually, where companies can work with us for a year and they get access to all kinds of resources to help them strengthen their supply chains, to help them connect with suppliers and manage their suppliers, to get better relationships with those suppliers so that they're not, left hanging when those suppliers have issues with being able to get those supplies to the Virginia companies, and a whole host of other issues around supply chain that our resources are now going and being put towards helping these companies through those.
Well, that's a big issue, and that I regularly deal with that with my business clients here at our firm. Last question for you, given that you deal with exports regularly, are there any favorite countries that you like to deal with, or any emerging countries that you foresee greater levels of trade for Virginians?
Sure. No, that's a great question. Southeast Asia has been growing in importance for Virginia in terms of an export destination as well as a source of imports. And I'm really excited about opportunities there. So I'm thinking Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. We're seeing more companies interested in those markets, and we're seeing just the growing populations, the growing middle classes in those countries are just ripe for U.S. products and Virginia products. They are ripe for new innovations that are going to help those economies grow even more. So that's an area of the world that I'm really excited about.
Cool. Actually, one last question. If for those who are watching, if they want to learn more about VEDP and exactly what it does, is exportvirginia.org the place to go?
That is, yes, it's the place to go. We have another website for other aspects of VEDP. The main VEDP website is vedp.org, and there is a way to connect to exportvirginia.org from there. But I would say absolutely go to the website. And if you are trying to figure out who is the regional trade manager who covers your area of Virginia, just go to our zip code search. You put in the zip code of your business, and the person who is your contact will pop up, and I really encourage you to reach out. That is what they do every day. Our trade manager team answers questions, talks through scenarios, and gets you engaged if you're ready. And if you're not, they're there to just answer questions and help prepare you for when you are ready to engage in our resources.
Awesome. Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and your insights. Mostly very appreciated.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And for everyone who's watching, on March 22nd, CBIC will be hosting a virtual event from noon to 1:30 Eastern Time. We are going to be discussing international trade in greater detail with a panel moderated by Rebecca Haydock, Executive Director of Central Virginia SBDC, Small Business Development. And we're also going to have a panel composed of VEDP members as well as SBDC members. So please check your calendars and mark your calendars appropriately. I'm Justin Ritter. Thank you for watching.